Hi friends, it's Magpie and Tingers here, and today we're going to talk to you about our top 10 favorite hikes that we did in 2022.
We have lived in our 1987 Winnebago for 7 months now. We hiked over 900 miles.
This will include day hikes, backpacking trips, really all of our miles that we did in 2022 together. We both made separate lists of our top 10 hikes for the year, and we have not looked at each other's lists, so we're going to see how much we agree and disagree with each other. Disclaimer, we have only really hiked in the West, so if we don't mention your favorite hike from the Eastern United States, don't worry, we are going there in 2023, so make sure to follow along with us if you want to see those. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. My number 10 was the Warner route in Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park.
Okay. Yeah, that was an honorable mention for me. It didn't quite make the top 10.
This hike is in Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, which is in Colorado. The whole hike is going down into the canyon and back out. And if you don't know about the canyon, it is the steepest and narrowest canyon in the US.
I would say like the views on this trail probably aren't going to be nearly as good as like some of the other trails that are going to be on the list, but the challenge, man, there's hardly any trail, so like tons of route finding. It's super remote, so not one other person on the trail. So steep that you're climbing with your hands, and then all the way down was brutal, and then you just turn around and do the same thing back up. So one of the more rewarding hikes for sure, even though like not the prettiest.
I totally agree, and that is why it is not the best on my list, but it was definitely one that I will remember and that I really enjoyed doing. Okay, what was your number 10?
My number 10 was Little Wild Horse Canyon in Utah.
That's fair. That was an honorable mention for me, actually, so it did not make my list.
And slot canyons are these really narrow canyons that form in the desert during flash floods, where it gets more narrow than our shoe and you squeeze through the walls. But what's really cool about this one, rather than Antelope Canyon or some of the more famous slot canyons, is it's really like out there in the desert and there's hardly any people. If you get up early, you basically have the whole thing to yourself. I think that was really cool, like super adventurous hike.
I wasn't expecting to like that hike as much as I did. The reason it didn't make my list personally is because in the parts that were not in the slot canyons were pretty boring. My number 9 for hikes of 2022 is Angels Landing and Zion National Park.
All right, Angels Landing was my number 8 hike, so I had it just one spot above you.
Okay, you've probably heard of this trail before. It is one of the most popular hikes in the United States and one of the most dangerous. The reason I ranked it a little lower is because most of the hike is pretty boring, to be honest with you. Like the hike from the trailhead up to the chains is not very scenic, and it's all paved, which is fine. It makes it accessible to a lot of people, but I personally like more rugged trails. It also made it a little lower because it is very crowded and you do have to get permits that are pretty hard to obtain, but the chains are just so incredibly amazing.
Even despite all that, the chains are like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Definitely.
And if you have the chance to do it, you should go do it. Like it is a top-notch hike.
What was your number 9 though?
My number 9 was Fern Canyon in Redwood State and National Park. Brooke and I did a 12-mile loop that went through the redwoods and then ended in Fern Canyon. So that was a lot of fun. The redwoods speak for themselves. Huge trees, incredible forests, also a once in a lifetime experience. And then Fern Canyon is this creek bed in a little canyon. The canyon itself isn't too impressive, but the walls are completely covered with dripping ferns through the whole mile, and super unique, super beautiful, awesome hike.
I did not put that in my top 10, but I definitely think that if you're in the area of redwoods, you should go do it.
That was my birthday hike.
Yeah, we did that on his birthday. So Nick's number 8 was Angels Landing. I'm gonna follow his lead there. My number 8 was actually the Narrows, also in Zion. The Narrows is probably a hike that you've also heard of before. You walk through the canyon of Zion National Park. The reason I ranked this one in my top 10 is because it, again, is just something that is so unique. I will probably literally never do a hike like this in my life again. You are in water that can be all the way up to your waist. Luckily, we did not experience water that high. It only went up to maybe my thighs.
That was Brooke's number 8. My number 7 was the Narrows. All the same
Pretty
reason.
similar.
Such an adventurous hike, so unique, so fun. Very unlikely that you've done anything like that. Brooke and I got on the first shuttle and we ran in front of everyone. On the way out, we had the whole thing to ourselves. Probably not going to experience anything like that anywhere else.
I will say this hike gets very, very, very crowded. On the way back, how many people do you think we saw?
It was like Disney World.
Yeah,
That's what everyone kept saying.
Yeah.
Get there early, hike fast. It's worth braving the cold water to have it to yourself.
Nick's number 7 was the Narrows. My number 7 was Sourdough Mountain in North Cascades National Park. This is a very underrated park, first of all. North Cascades is absolutely beautiful. The reason I chose Sourdough Mountain, I truly believe that this was the best view that we ever got on our hikes. When you get to the top of this mountain, you are just rewarded with a 360-degree view of the North Cascades Mountains. It is an unreal experience. And also the hike up there is really hard. So if you want to see it, like, you have to work for it. And it's one that'll always stick in my mind.
Sourdough was actually my number 3 hike.
Oh!
I loved Sourdough. Like she said, it's super tough switchbacks, just unrelenting elevation gain. In the forest the whole time, can't really see anything. You get to the ridge and like, it's pretty, and then you get to the top, and like she said, maybe the most beautiful thing you'll ever see in your life. Just incredible view.
If I would have like broken my leg on the way up there, it still would have been worth it.
Whenever I was debating like where to put things on the list, my thought process was, if I got paralyzed tomorrow and like I could only do one hike, what would I choose between these two or something? Sourdough was so high for me. If I could
agree.
never hike again and I could only see one more view, Sourdough is up there.
Yeah. The fact that you can do that in a day hike is a rare experience for a view like that.
My number 6, which is a hot take, was High Dune in Great Sand Dunes National Park. So
Okay.
The walk to High Dune from the parking lot and back is only like 3.5 miles, but you shouldn't just walk to High Dune and back. So Great Sand Dunes National Park is this massive area in the middle of Colorado, all sand dunes, looks like it's straight out of the Saharan desert, but it's surrounded by 14ers on all sides. So incredible vistas. The dunes are 800 feet high, not playing around to get to the top. Every step just drags you a little further down. It's not easy. So High Dune just happens to be the tallest one, but really I'm talking about our experience just like walking around the dunes. And we went to High Dune, watched the sunset up there. Incredible sunset, incredible views, super unique.
The sunset there was probably the most beautiful sunset we've ever seen.
Running down the dunes is like the most fun. Everyone who does it just has a huge smile on their face, from like kids to adults. Favorite hikes, I think this is really high for me.
I didn't put it on my list because of how short it was, but the memories there are very fun. If you go, please rent a sandboard. They are so fun.
Yeah,
so
here's
much fun.
us shredding the gnar.
My number 6 was actually the Grand Teton Loop in the Teton National Park.
That's my number 5.
Okay, pretty similar ranking there. The part that makes this my number 6 is Hurricane Pass. When you go to the Tetons, most people see the Tetons over Jenny Lake, but you get like the behind view from Hurricane Pass. There's a glacier there, which I did not even know was gonna be there. And there was like nobody there, and it was really amazing and a fun memory. And we did 2 nights out there.
It's awesome. Sitting on a Hurricane Pass and seeing the view of the Tetons and knowing that only the people who are willing to strap on a backpack or run 30 miles or get on a horse are pretty much the only people who ever get to see this view. It made it really special and really cool.
The view of the Tetons at Delta Lake was also amazing. I highly recommend going to see that.
May not be the most beautiful mountains, but they're the most photogenic for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'll never get a better picture of a mountain.
We already talked about Nick's number 5. My number 5 was the Enchantments in Washington. If you don't know what those are, they are in northern Washington. It's 23 miles. Now the kicker here, you need permits for the overnight, which we applied for, we did not get. So we had to rip this in one day. That was really difficult. It was definitely the hardest day hike I've ever done. So the first 6 miles or so of the trail is uphill, which is fine, but that means the last 16 miles is all downhill. And if you're an experienced hiker, you know downhill is worse than going uphill. I would rather go uphill all day long. 16 miles downhill is so hard on your joints. I don't know how many times I cried on that trail, but I cried so much. The views though, oh my god, the views are insane. I don't even know, I'm just gonna insert pictures because I don't even know how to explain this to you. And the wildlife here was so good too. We saw a bunch of mountain goats.
A fisher cat. We saw a fisher cat.
Oh yeah,
Didn't even know what that was. This was an honorable mention of mine.
You didn't put it on your list
it
at
didn't
all?
make the top 10.
Oh my
I don't know.
gosh.
Super difficult hike. I think the only reason this didn't make my list is maybe it was a little bit overhyped. Like maybe my expectations were a little high going in. The views were incredible, don't get me wrong, but I think you could see it not by hiking 24 miles over a pass.
Yeah.
Like I think you could see just as good of views in multiple other places that we saw. I guess that is like sort of my justification here is it was extremely difficult.
You're gonna get so much hate for that.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. Like it was an honorable mention. Definitely one of the coolest hikes in America, no doubt about that. Just didn't beat out Great Sand Dunes. So like what can I say? I love the sand.
I think the achievement for me was really big. How could I not put the hardest day hike I've done on my list? Like that just didn't make any sense to me, so I had to put it on there.
Alright, my number 4, which I know is on Brooke's list too, is Saya Pass.
It's not on my list.
It's not on your list?
No. I have a different glacier one as number 4, actually.
It's not on your list?
No.
Saya Pass is in Glacier National Park. I don't even know what to say about it. Glacier has a lot of big hikes and a lot of awesome hikes, so this was my favorite. Beat out a couple of others.
Every hike in Glacier is going to be jam-packed with people. There's just no way you can avoid it. And it's because they're good hikes. Saya Pass was one that was kind of off the beaten path.
That's what sold it for me. It gave me like super similar views to Highline or Grinnell Glacier, but without all the people.
I considered putting it on my list for sure. After reflecting on our trip and what I remember from Glacier and stuff, I always go back to Grinnell, and that's why it is my number 4. I mean, the views pretty much the whole way are amazing. Like even before you get to the glacier.
The glacier like might not even be the coolest part.
I disagree with that. Don't go that far. That was surreal to be at that glacier, and when you see the pictures, you're gonna understand what I mean by that. But yeah, whenever I think back to Glacier National Park, I think of Grinnell.
Grinnell Glacier is pretty awesome, and if you only get to do one hiking glacier, this is probably the one you should do. It's kind of got everything. Cool wildlife. We saw a bear. I took a dip in the glacier, which was a lot of fun.
He did do that. Nick's 3 was Sourdough. My number 3 is High Divide in Olympic National Park. Did you not put it on there?
High Divide was an honorable mention for me too. I really thought this was gonna make the list. When Brooke brought up this list idea, I immediately went there, but it just kept getting knocked down by other things that I thought until it wasn't on the list anymore.
We did it in a day hike. You can totally backpack it if you want. Nick actually ran it, so we didn't do this together technically. I mean, the hike did not disappoint. This hike was beautiful. It started in the forest and then it went up to the mountains. At one point you had this perfect view of Mount Olympus. That view was amazing.
Brooke started before me and then I ran and we met each other at the ridge and we just like turned and saw this like huge view of Mount Olympus. I think that moment will definitely stick with me for a long time.
It was also a hike that was really hard for me because at that point that was the longest day hike I had ever done, and I did it by myself. Being able to finish that was like a really big achievement.
So that was super early on our trip, and I think that was also the longest trail run I had done until that moment as well. So also a big accomplishment for myself. Okay, maybe that should have been in my top 10. That's a great hike. Everyone should do that trail.
Do you think you ranked it lower because you were trail running?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I'll do a separate whole video on the best trail runs. And yeah, it's definitely different. You don't get to like notice things as much.
Take in that much. I have a feeling our top 2 are the exact same. Why don't we say our second one together? 3, 2, 1.
Lost Coast Trail.
I forgot to say it. But yes, the Lost Coast Trail is also my number 2.
So Highway 1 is the Pacific Coast Highway that goes up the coast of California, Oregon, and Washington. When they were cutting this highway, there was one part that's pretty mountainous on the coast, and it was too rugged to get the highway through, and so they had to reroute behind the mountains. And that 25-mile stretch is referred to as the Lost Coast. It's the Pacific Coast that nobody ever gets to see. This is the Lost Coast Trail. It hikes all 25 miles of those. It is awesome.
It is one of the most unique trails I've ever been on. You're walking on black sand beaches. You're walking over these ocean rocks, which really, really sucks, but it's the experience, right? Okay, so you're walking through bluffs, and the best part was the wildlife sighting that we got, elephant seals. Holy crap, that was so freaking cool. They only come on the beach 2 times a year, and we got to see one of them.
The wildlife is top tier. Elephant seals, sea lions, sea otters, all kinds of crustaceans, starfish, birds.
Yeah.
I mean, there's pretty much always a wild animal to look at. Throughout the trail, there are a few choke points, so when the tide comes up, the beach where the trail is impassable. So you have to print out a tide chart and you watch the tides super closely, and you have to hike at crazy hours and crazy speeds because you have to beat the tides through these impassable zones, which adds a level of adventure and epicness that no other hike has.
And kind of scariness.
Yeah, definitely a little bit scary. On the last day, we ended up waking up at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and hiking through the night to beat the tides and get back to our car. We actually out and backed this, so we got to the other side, didn't want to pay for the shuttle, so we turned around and hiked back the other way. Views are awesome. You get like the Pacific Coast fog.
It's time for number 1, the trail that you've all been waiting for. If you watch our channel, you're probably not surprised because we've talked about it a lot. Okay, ready?
Are we gonna say it on the same time?
Yeah, this time we are.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. John Muir Trail. This was our long through hike that we did. It is a 220-mile through hike through the Sierra Nevadas in California. It starts in Yosemite and ends on top of Mount Whitney, which is the tallest mountain in the contiguous United States. It took us 17 days to complete, and we were just living out of our backpacks. It was challenging. It was beautiful. I made so many friends on there, so many memories that I will cherish forever. I don't think it will ever be knocked out of number 1.
This answer's kind of cheating. Definitely go check out our other videos. Brooke's done a really good job like outlining our time on the JMT. Literally not one bad thing to say. It might be the most beautiful thing in the entire world. It might be the most fun and most challenging thing in the entire world. So if you get the permits, drop whatever you're doing, quit whatever job you have, and go hike it. It's life-changing.
I learned so much about myself. We learned so much about each other and our relationship. If somebody asked me to do this trail tomorrow, I would go do it. Well, maybe not right now because it's covered in snow.
Do not hike the John Muir Trail tomorrow.
No, don't do that. You get it. You get what I mean.
I'll just plug our channel and end the video right now.
Yeah. All right. So that is our top 10 hikes of 2022. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel, especially if you want to see what hikes we do in 2023.
Let us know what your favorite hikes on the West Coast are in the comments. More importantly, let us know what your favorite hikes on the East Coast are because that is where we're going.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.